All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to talk about Jermell Charlo and the fight with Brian Castano, and specifically the rematch between the two, where Jermell Charlo says that he's going to be way more active, way more confident, and way more aggressive. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. But before we get into the meat of the video, please make sure if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. Also, please make sure to like the video, share the video. It really does go a long way for support towards supporting the channel and helping it grow, and it is greatly appreciated. So let's go over what Jermell Charlo has to say after his draw against Brian Castano. As you know, there was a really terrific fight that took place last Saturday night between Jermell Charlo, who was the WBC, WBA, who is the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF champion, and Brian Castano, who is the WBO 154-pound champion. They had a great back and forth fight. I really did enjoy it. It's like when you know a fight is really good, it's when it goes quickly, right? You look up like, man, it's the 5th round already. Man, it's the 10th round already. Man, oh, it's the 12th round. It just goes really fast because the whole time the fighters were in a situation where it was just nip and tuck. Every round was nip and tuck. Jermell Charlo would start out boxing on the, start out the round, boxing in the middle of the round, throwing jabs, throwing right hands. Some of the jabs weren't the sharpest jabs or the right hands. Some of the right hands didn't get through, or many of the right hands didn't get through. But still, you seeing him jabbing right from the outside. And then later on in the round, whenever he gets up against the rope, then Brian Castano really starts throwing a lot of punches up against the ropes. But it wound up it was like, who won that round? Some rounds were clearly for Charlo, some rounds were clearly for Castano. But it was, all in all, it was just a really great, exciting fight. But whenever there's a draw, there's always this, this visceral reaction to the draw, where one group of people, or a group of people that thinks that a certain fighter should have lost, go way overboard with, oh, that fight was a ridiculous robbery. And man, there wasn't a robbery in that fight. You had 3 judges that all scored the fight. You had 3 different scorecards. One scorecard could have been wide, 117, 111, but the other one was close. But it doesn't matter, because the fight, the totality of the scorecards is what matters. They said it was a draw, and that is something I think most people should be able to live with, because that fight was nip and tuck, and neither one of those fighters really did separate himself very much from the other fighter. And so it is just what it is, However, when Jermell Charlo, having taken a lot of this pressure, talked about what he needs to do in order for the fight to go his way, and what he's going to do in the next fight, is he said that he's going to be more aggressive, that he's going to be way more active, because that is pretty much what gave Brian Castano the appearance of pulling out the fight, is that he was throwing more punches. He pretty much threw the punches when he was up against the ropes, but he was just more active with his hands and up against the ropes. So Jermell Charlo says, I'm going to be way more active. I know what more than likely he's going to talk about doing, which is trying to push Brian Castano back, and not continually giving up space to Brian Castano, but pushing Brian Castano back, because whenever he hit Brian Castano, he hurt Brian Castano. So more shots to the body, I could see, he thinks throwing more combinations, and just to kind of get Brian Castano to open up, because Brian Castano was very hard to hit when you're just coming behind a high guard with a very clinched high guard, and he's already a small, short, compact guy. So, and Jermell Charlo was looking down on him, so that slot in between his hands might have looked very short. But then, hey, you got to dig the jab to the body. But he said that he's going to be more aggressive, more assertive, more confident. So that right there, though, should answer the questions of many people that I had come to my live stream, that were telling me that that Jermell Charlo said that he didn't want a rematch, or he wasn't interested in a rematch. And my thought was, that doesn't make any sense. How could he not be interested in a rematch? There's nowhere else for him to go. He fought for an undisputed title, and it was a fight to a draw. Why wouldn't you rematch the guy in that scenario to see if you can do it a second time? First of all, that's a lot more money. That's more money for you, and there's probably more money in the second fight than there is in the first. And also people are going to have better expectations in the second fight than they had in the first fight, and he might be able to win on just a slightly better performance. And personally, I think Brian Castano fought as well as Brian Castano could fight in that fight, and I don't think Jermell Charlo fought anywhere as near as well as he could have fought in that fight, as evidenced by what Derek James was saying in the corner, which was, you got to throw more punches, you got to be more active, you got to throw the punch, go to the body, hit him in the body. And because pretty much what Jermell was doing was headhunting. Now, on the other side of it, Brian Castano has some things that Brian Castano needs to do if Brian Castano wants to win that second fight, which is for him to do more boxing in the center of the ring. If anything cost him that fight, it was the fact that whenever they were in the center of the ring, the Brian Castano just held his head on his head like this and kept getting tapped with shots. You may not like how hard those shots are, but those shots could look like, to a judge, look like they're getting through. And more importantly, Brian Castano looks like he's not throwing back, and lost large sections of rounds. Even if you say that Brian Castano won a round with the rallies that he may do in the last 30 seconds of a fight, or of that round, or when he get Jermell Charlo up against the ropes, there was still large sections of those rounds where Brian Castano was being very inactive and refusing to engage, right? And pretty much he just refused to engage up until he got Jermell Charlo on the ropes, and he starts winging away at punches. And that could definitely be why that one judge had it 117, 111. Like, look, I'm not going to give you credit for rounds if you're only fighting the last 15 seconds, 20 seconds of the round. You're trying to steal rounds, and you're trying to, when you get somebody, you get them up against the ropes, you're trying to just pump your hands and all that to try to get the crowd involved. That is a lot of gamesmanship that on the part of Brian Castano. And that one judge didn't go for it. So if he wants to win the next fight, he's going to have to change what he does, and he's going to have to open himself up more. And if he opens himself up some more, then there's the likelihood that Jermell Charlo is going to get through with one of those big shots and could definitely get Brian Castano out of there. But all in all, I think that they had the right decision in that fight. I like the draw. I think Brian Castano should be happy with that draw. I know Jermell Charlo should be happy with that draw and feel like, man, I pulled out 5 of the last 6 rounds, and that's what got me here. And on top of that, from Brian Castano's point of view, or the viewpoint of Brian Castano, dude, if you lose the last 4 rounds of a fight, dude, don't be surprised if you wind up with a draw, because all the guy had to do was get 2 of the other rounds in the fight. You would have had to score. You would have had to won 8 straight rounds if you lose the last 4. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's my take on the situation. You let me know what yours is. And with that, I'm out. Peace.